It's the Awake Space Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, it's another week of 2025, and I'm here to help you with some information and maybe some tools for moving through the energy. I think it's time we had a talk. I think there's some very serious things we need to discuss. When it comes to what my mission is and my modus operandi, that is for me to determine and no one else. And I'm going to talk about that in the monologue. And I have a couple special guests in the podcast this week. The first is our little fuzzy furry friend Elmo, at the request of my patrons. And Elmo and I will be discussing some recent comments that I have received. My other very, very special guest is the incomparable Olivia Edward, who is remarkable. She's an actress. She's an aficionado of astrology and the host of Evolve Plus Television's Astrology podcast. And she is joining me today. We recorded a couple weeks ago, and so she's on the podcast. I'm going to give what's in the headlines, and I'll talk about that in the monologue as well at the opening. I want to remind you that this podcast is something you can listen to because each segment is its own thing, and you can fast forward, skip, rewind, tune back in over time, or ignore altogether. We'll talk about that in the monologue as well. I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of the podcast about resistance and how to release it, especially in regards to when the Schumann Resonance spikes. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your hot cocoa, get your matcha, and whatever we're doing today, whether we are out walking or we are hitting the pool because it's too hot, or we're putting on our Uggs and Snuggies, whatever we're doing, we're going to do it together. Let me know. Did I help you get chores done? I love doing chores that I don't have to do. Or did I exercise today with you? Because that makes me skinnier. So keep exercising. If you take me with you, I'm sure it makes room for a cosmic brownie for me. I'm convinced of it. As always, we'll do our patron shout outs. And because there is no podcast without patrons. This is 100% listener supported. We are like the NPR of astrology. And so huge thanks to my patrons. I love it when you guys thank the patrons in the comments. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel really good because I am blessed to be able to do my work in the world. All right, let's get this party started. So, my dears, my beloveds, my lovelies, you know where this is going, right? First of all, I will never contact you in a DM for a reading on any social media site. There are actually, at this point, like beyond dozens of fakes that are stealing my likeness. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. They steal my profile picture. They try to use my name and they get a hold of you. I don't have time to text you. And guess what? I don't have any room in my booking calendar right now. If you want a reading, you can head over to wokeastrology.com, my website, and you can read with the incomparable Susie Evolutionary, Damian Bartlett, and Shelby Lordy. These are the astrologers I have handpicked to read at Woke Astrology. Not just because it's a business, but because I know people need readings, and these guys are really good. So if you need a reading, head over there. I am teaching my summer school, which is the Align and Thrive Summer School, and we've been going over professional development, content creation, mindset shifts, healing the money wound using astrology, and finding your side gig. And it has been remarkable, super fun. super fun and empowering. And a lot of people think they know what an astrologer should be, but they've only ever seen sellouts. I mean, commercial astrologers insofar as they've got big books put out. Remember, publishers only publish things that are commercially successful. I believe I've finally created one that might be and still be useful. They're used to what I like to call Tumblr spirituality, but even, the free love movement and the hippie movement didn't do us a lot of favors. I am a huge fan of patchouli. I'm not going to lie. I love the smell of patchouli, but that does not make you a spiritual person. Okay. Neither does being falsely soft, the whole, oh, my beloveds, the unicorn farts and rainbows and fluffy leprechauns or whatever it is. That is not spirituality. I am an initiate in some deep energy work and metaphysical practices beyond being an astrologer. And I am absolutely committed to assisting people in their energetical journey, which includes understanding that you are both spirit and physical. You are spirit made manifest. And part of being spirit made manifest is reconciling the fact that you are in a human body. I do not tolerate bypassing, and I will not tolerate people telling me how to do my job. You either like it or you do not like it. You either resonate with it or you do not. There is no requirement of you to agree with me. I am not an evangelist. I am a teacher. I am a spiritual teacher. Astrology just happens to be one of the many subjects at which I excel. So I have a beef, and Elmo's going to join me to talk about this. If you're watching the video version of the podcast, you're just going to have to pretend that Elmo is here. Close your eyes. Just close your eyes and pretend that Elmo is here with us. But Elmo has come to address a comment, and I'm going to have Elmo read the comment and give Elmo's opinion on what this person had to say. So, hello, Elmo.
Hi, Laurie. How you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Oh, that's really good. I'm a little nervous.
Why are you nervous? You're on TV all the time.
Yeah, but they're not magic like you.
They're not what?
They're not magic like you.
What?
They're not a magic person like you.
Well, I'm not that magical.
No, I can see you are.
Okay. So, Elmo, would you do us all a favor and read the comment?
Emma will do his best.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the podcast, but her mountain is to portray information in a nonpartisan. What's that word?
Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan way. Emma's confused.
What are you confused by, Elmo?
Emma's confused about what that sentence means. What's your mountain?
My mountain? I think they were probably using voice to text. They might have meant mission. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader.
I thought you were magic.
No, that would be my friend who's the psychic.
I thought you were psychic.
I am psychic, but not that way.
Okay. So I really enjoyed the podcast, but her mountain is to portray information in a nonpartisan way. What's nonpartisan mean?
It means you don't pick a political party.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, that's it. It just means you're coming at things from a philosophical viewpoint. It doesn't mean you don't have opinions. It just means a nonpartisan. Partisan means you have a political stand, like as far as a party, just a party.
Okay. Emma likes parties. Is there cake?
No, these parties don't have cake, Elmo. They stand for different types of beliefs. Like one side might believe that everybody deserves a living wage, and the other side might believe that people should feel lucky for having a job.
How can people feel both ways?
Well, sometimes we can't feel both ways. Sometimes we're like, hey, I really love my job and I feel really lucky to have it, but I should also be compensated. Those are my personal beliefs.
So are you partisan?
No, I don't like either party, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. Emma will continue. Even though I agree with her, I feel it takes away from it, and I feel like I'm listening to a CNN horoscope section. So, let me try it again.
Yes, go ahead.
Even though I agree with her, I feel it takes away from it, and I feel like I'm listening to a CNN horoscope section, which cheapens her potential. Oh, no, she didn't.
Yeah, she did. Maybe he did. I don't know. I can't tell because can you read their username?
Is it really a username?
It appears to be. I think they were just trying to stay anonymous.
Okay, Emma will do his best. 21FL5Q6QD TW677KIP MDUCY5RI. It's not very pronounceable.
Yeah, because yeah.
Why would they say that to you?
Because people like to have opinions and people think they know what astrologers should do.
So they're telling you you're just supposed to like not have an opinion, and they feel like they're listening to CNN? You don't sound like you're from Fox?
No, I don't sound like I'm from Fox. I don't think I sound like I'm from CNN anyway, but I do read it like I'm on the news because the segment where I give predictions is called What's in the Headlines?
Okay. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So a lot of times people will give their 2 cents on what they think an astrologer should do. And a lot of times they think we shouldn't have political opinions because they misunderstand what spirituality is all about. They think that people who are spiritual shouldn't take an interest in the physical world. And that's actually a construct that comes out of organized religions who want to oppress and keep people suppressed and poor.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot, Elmo. And furthermore, people think that they can tell people who create content how to do it. And what's funny, it's because partially I'm a woman. I notice they don't do it to men very often, once in a while, but not very often.
Oh, patriarchy.
That's right, Elmo. Patriarchy.
So they were just trying to get you to do things their way.
Yes, exactly.
But it's your show.
It is my show.
Is someone supposed to get it?
No, you don't have to get it.
Okay.
So, Elmo, would you do me an honor of helping me read some of the predictions later in the podcast?
Oh, I don't want to read the scary ones.
No, you can read some nice ones.
Oh, Emma want to read the nice ones. That's really good. Can my friend Cookie join us?
We'll see if Cookie can join us.
Please.
All right. Cookie can join us. Oh, goody, 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 goody. C is for Cookie. All right. Enough Muppets. All right. I did that to annoy people because I went on a live stream after I read that comment. I was so annoyed by that person. They are not the first. And the other thing was telling me that I limit my potential. What is my potential? I know my potential and I know my job. And if you're going to talk about me in the third person when I'm the one who runs my social media, it's probably not a wise idea. And my actual response, which can be read in the Spotify comments, was I am nonpartisan. I feel that both parties can suck donkey balls. So that's what I think about that. We can be spiritual and hold strong opinion. That spiritual bypassing of physical reality is absolutely intensely offensive to me. We are in the situation we are in. We are in this crux and crisis of consciousness because people chose to check out. These problems are not new. The current administration is a symptom of a much wider problem. The Project 2025 is the culmination of a 45-year plan. And if you think it's okay to subjugate people, if you think it is okay to pick people up out of court, out of school, out of their homes, if you can drag them off buses and you can say you're spiritual, you might want to reflect on yourself. Especially if you come from a Christian background, because my friends, he flipped tables and pulled out a bullwhip. Spirituality is about standing for what matters, which is compassion and empathy and dignity of all human beings, of the planet itself. How anyone can just sit there thinking there are weather machines causing the climate to misfire when we have toxified the ocean, when we have polluted the air, where we have absolutely rerouted rivers and dammed and shoved them up, all in the name of progress. It forces weather change. It is a scientific fact. To have these pseudo-intellectual conversations on and offline about weather modification, when it is clearly exactly happening as scientists were speaking of in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. Now, some of you are too young to remember that. However, it is not spiritual to look at the world and say, I'm above it, when we are here on it. And if I sound too damn opinionated, then I am not the teacher for you. I am not here for your entertainment. I am not here to appease your feelings. I am here to help you navigate very interesting times. You can take it or leave it. You don't have to listen to me. I am here to ameliorate your experience. And if you choose not to, that is on you. There are many pathways. What I offer is but one. You don't have to like the what's in the headline segment. You don't have to like how I do it. You can fast forward, but do not tell me what my mission is. I know both my purpose and my mission.
Wow, Laurie, that was really good. Elmo enjoyed that.
Thank you, Elmo. We can approach spirituality with humor, with ease, with grace, and with indignation. We don't want to be caught up and swept up in any one particular emotion for long, but we are all entitled to feel them. And that is what I have to say about that. Oh, it's a week. And we are looking at July 14th through the 20th. July 14th through the 20th this week. And we now have Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde. And coming up on the 17th, we have Mercury retrograde. Mercury's been running around, not really making aspect to much. And so if you've been having some tech issues, if you've been having some communication snafus, it could be Mercury kind of running around, not aspected. It's not really doing much. It's sitting there in Leo and it's kind of doing its own thing. And we're watching communications kind of spill all over the place. And it's been kind of fun watching those I would consider my opposition in the world kind of have meltdowns at the Jeffrey Epstein files, which is pretty interesting. That may be what undoes the whole situation. I have particular feelings about it as somebody who survived CSA and prolonged CSA. I saw several men who are standing in favor of having everything released. And one indignantly said that each person on that list should spend their lives in jail. And I thought, boy, if we went after every predator that way, we wouldn't have enough jail space because it's often people you wouldn't expect. I think it's important to hold those people accountable, but there's a reason so many people are triggered by the abusive tactics of the administration. And it is abusive tactics. That's not an opinion. It's an actual educated statement. People are triggered because it is so common. Dominance and control only does damage. And so people are taken aback, they are shocked, and they are triggered because of how these people are behaving. And if you experience that in any way, shape, or form as a young person, it produces a reaction. And a reaction is resistance. Okay. And when resistance gets in our way of functioning, then it aids and abets our oppression. And that's something I'm going to end on the podcast with this week. I'll be talking a little bit more as we move through the next month or two about dealing with resistance and how to manage initiatory energy, which is what happens when the Schumann Resonance spikes. It's a evidence of initiatory energy. I'll be talking about initiations and the ways in the Patreon. This is the month I'm teaching because it's my birthday month and it's my favorite thing. So, but yeah, sorry to annoy you with the Elmo, but I kind of had to. But actually, all of the patrons were wanting that. So at least the ones who voiced it. If you didn't voice it and you didn't want it, well, you gotta participate. If you don't participate, people don't know. And yeah, I used to talk like Elmo to entertain my oldest child. So there we go. Alrighty. I think it is time for what's in the headlines. And I think we're going to put Cookie away. I think Cookie's found some more cookies. I think it's just going to be Elmo showing up for a little bit of good news. All right, we're taking a look at what's in the headlines, and Elmo's going to read a couple of news items, ones that are good, because Elmo doesn't want to read anything that feels a little icky or scary. And since Elmo is a 5-year-old, that is perfectly appropriate. But once we get to be grown-ups, we just kind of have to look at what's in the headlines and understand it's not the only thing that's there. All right, Elmo, do you want to read what I wrote for the moon in Pisces, just that top line? Do you think you can?
The moon in Pisces hands Kendrick the mic. Whap, 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 F him up.
Wow, that was really good.
Thank you.
All right. The moon in Pisces hands Kendrick the mic. Whap, 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 F him up. Strange tides, riptides, dangerous surf, hurricanes, big wind, cyclones, big waves, and erosion-causing events. We could see pharmacies, drugs, herbal remedies, and supplements in the news.
Could that be good stuff?
Yes, it could be good stuff.
I want to read it now.
Okay.
Pharmacies, drugs, herbal remedies, and supplements.
Very good.
Thank you.
Big fires potentially in the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia, Alaska, Siberia, and eastern Russia. Navy clashes, issues with submarines, loss of a ship or sub, or accident with the Navy. So there'd be military boats is great potential. We could hear about toxic waste, radiation, and nuclear power. And that could include the uranium that they're looking for, the enriched uranium in Iran. Any of that kind of stuff could be up. Potential terrorist attack, vehicular violence, or use of drones. Increased use of bombs, missiles, and expansion of war in any current conflict. Large civilian casualties. That could be Gaza, that could be Ukraine, it could be Russia. Drug cartels, gangs, ICE, and hate groups featured in a new way. Violence in a church, mosque, or synagogue. Could be a temple of some kind as well. Ceasefires fail. Drug overdoses, tampered with drugs. And we heard about 25 overdoses in Philadelphia. So some kind of new street drug. So it might be something like that.
Pharmaceuticals, breakthroughs in treatment.
Very good. You are on top of that, Elmo. And I'll just read that again. Pharmaceutical breakthroughs in treatment. Could hear about a breakthrough in alternative energy, non-fossil fuel based.
What does that mean? Is that good?
It is good.
What does it mean?
It means that it would be non-oil or gas. Environmentalists and activism could be taking action, winning a lawsuit or a protest, anything from formal environmental activism from like Greenpeace to Greta Thunberg speaking up about climate change or the issue in Gaza, which is both a humanitarian as well as environmental, as humans are part of the environment. All right, we've got Mexico could see a high-profile figure or a judge. It could be a dignitary. It could be a person of note. Somebody important. It could be kidnapped, or there could be an assassination attempt. July 14th could see a major event. It could be an issue with a submarine or Navy ship, air accident, breach of security, or hacking of a financial reporting system, or all of it. And when I'm talking about an air accident, in this case, I'm not talking about a small private plane. Okay, this would be like a military flight, could be a military helicopter, could be a commercial flight of some kind. It doesn't mean it will be yours, but it will be in the headlines. Big weather in the Indian subcontinent, Japan, Bering Straits, could be a typhoon, could be an atmospheric river. It could be something even like if it's between Japan and the Indian subcontinent, anything in there, so could be Thailand, could be, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Laos, Myanmar, anywhere in there. Big weather, big rain. Accident at sea, cargo ships, cruise ships, drug-induced psychosis, mass killing or a cult in the news. And this could be that new drug like we saw out of Pennsylvania. That could be part of that. There could be an issue for J.D. Vance.
Is that good news?
I'm not sure that we're going to call it that on the podcast.
Why?
Because we have instincts for self-preservation, Elmo.
Okay.
Trump is under pressure. A potential physical impairment or attack on him. I've wondered what would cause the amount of stress for the events I've seen as a potential since 2021, 2022, and watching the Epstein situation unfold could be it. Is it going to happen right now? Remember, I haven't seen it until 2026. So people can make all the claims they want. I'm not seeing it for 2025, but I am seeing potential health crises. Dams and levees breach, severe weather, big rain. Keep your eye on your own forecasts. There are meteorologists still working, so keep your eye on them. We can see issues with oil and petroleum, oil spills, oil platforms, issues with natural gas or other kind of petrochemicals, including gas stations depots and refineries. And then we could see an issue with an oil tanker or a big Navy ship has an accident, could run aground, could have, an explosion, could catch fire. Or we could see a truck carrying a volatile load has an accident, fire, or explosion. So something might blow up real good, probably closer to the moon moving from Pisces to Aries. But, you never know. July 15th through the 18th, the moon in Aries. Whoops, there it is, and it's spicy. Extreme heat on the East Coast could see unusual fires, strange fog, or security lapses and incendiary devices. We could see air inversions, extreme heat and indexes. Water pollution or chemical or oil spills could be seeing environmental impact. Authorities lose ground or leaders get deposed by mobs. This I've got in with question marks around it, Israel or Iran. I don't think you're going to see regime change in Iran just yet. That's closer, that's more likely in 2026. Big winds drive sand, dust storms, could see a big commercial property or expensive properties that damaged by wind. We could see issues in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, increase in tensions or attacks. Air accident involving military personnel or helicopter or plane, drones, lasers, and satellites. Missiles or rocket launch makes the news. That could be anything from, missiles being fired from one country to another, the delivery of missiles or drones, or it could be a SpaceX thing. Who knows? Yeah, and here's where it's probably SpaceX because I wrote missile or rocket launch makes the news. Exploding engines or large equipment, like things go boom. Airspace closed or airports shut down, forest fire or fire on public lands. And sadly, we've got that fire in the Grand Canyon and it took out the lodge, which is a beautiful building. I've been there and it's just, it's a shame. That was a project done in the 30s and it was a masterful work of art, but maybe Mama Gaia is claiming her own back. So Elon Musk, under strain, makes statements, spills tea, or pushes limits. And Trump faces challenge to authority or has a health crisis. Attempted coups, insurrections, and political violence. Don't get your hopes up, ladies and gentlemen. This is potentially anywhere on Earth. With Saturn retrograde, newly retrograde in Aries, when the moon meets up with it, which is pretty quick on the 5th, all leaders are going to have a hard time holding ground, especially if they're despot, So if you've got dictators and despots, well, there we go. Arson, fires in important buildings and structures, road rage or big accidents on major freeways or international, highways, freeway, like think the Autobahn, but around border crossings, things like that. Do I mean the Autobahn? No, I used it as an example. We could see issues with Poland, Balkans, any of the countries in the Balkans, Moldova, etc. So Eastern Europe, Romania, any of those areas, Belarus, those types of places. They could be dealing with border security and potential sabotage and terrorist attacks. We could have international organizations under strain or face crisis. This could be the World Health Organization, World Bank, UN, NATO, etc. Leaders of all forms face opposition, as explained earlier, potential assassination or deposing of leaders. It's a stabby day. It's more of a kaboomy day than a stabby day. I think it would be unlikely to see a leader get stabbed, but I think we could see kabooms, bombs, anti-personnel weapons, or arson. Somebody could get set on fire and, it's gruesome, but that's what could be in the headlines. Issues with the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, Straits of Taiwan, or South Pacific. It could be piracy, war games, or big weather. Internet glitches, systems failures, and a hacking of significance. Why don't the hackers ever do something for the good of the people? Just saying. They make problems, but they don't help people out. I'm like, come on, if you're going to be Robin Hood, do it right. Authority figures, leaders challenged, power outages and communications failures. International court or agency makes emergency announcement. Barge, big ship or train with food or supplies for basic needs is bombed and has an accident. And that could be another Freedom Flotilla incident. And then the 20th, the moon moves into Gemini. I think we could see something happen in Australia, Asia Pacific, or New Zealand. It could have to do with military jets. It could be an air accident of some kind, or it could be maybe discussing that Malaysian flight from years ago. It's something. I also have a mid-air collision, a drone misfire, helicopter crash, and or missile could go astray. This is anywhere in the world. Issues with drones and missiles, including ICBMs with conventional warheads, electric vehicles and accidents with electric vehicles. Now, this was all most likely happening on the 20th when the moon moves into Gemini. Because it'll be conjunct Uranus and in a trine with Pluto. So these are going to be kind of dramatic events. It doesn't mean it's going to be happening to you. You could have huge insights. You could, if you're a writer, things could be flowing. It doesn't have to be bad for you. Let's see. We've got a shocking report or leaked information puts a CEO, CTO, CMO, or government official, and this is global, in hot water. Issues with knives, machetes, or public stabbing. Comedy actor comedian makes headlines. Satellite failures or issues with space, debris, meteors, or issues with rocket launches. GCC states in the headlines. That could be Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi, Oman, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Car industry makes major announcement. We could see a public stabbing or vehicular violence. We could see incendiary devices or anti-personnel weapons used in public spaces or on public land. Static electricity, lightning, electromagnetic storms, northern lights. We could see tension between U.S. and Mexico increase or on the border. A political party expels a member, and that is global. I wonder what that might be. Issues with lithium batteries, mines, or issues with other radioactive minerals. Tornadoes, ice storm, sandstorm, extreme heat, or big monsoon, or typhoon, or cyclone. And that's kind of how we start out next week. I'll talk about it next week as well. Yeah, what's in the headlines? Remember, these are just what I expect to be in the headlines. These aren't even close to all of the events that can happen within a week. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's so much. I'm like, guys, hundreds of thousands of events happen every single week. Doesn't matter what year it is. There's always something going on. Just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it's not happening. And so, things are a little bit more intense when the moon is at the beginning of the sign because we have so much fresh energy. So we've got, Saturn and Uranus and Jupiter and Pluto and Neptune all between 0 and like 2 degrees of the sign that they're in. That's all fresh start energy. Next week, we'll be talking about that new moon in Leo, and I'll be walking you through how to make the most of that fresh start energy. It's very dynamic, and it's a very powerful new moon, and you definitely can take advantage of it. So make sure you're tuning in. I want to thank my little co-host, Elmo.
Me?
Yeah, you. I want to thank you.
I didn't do much.
Oh, you joined me on the podcast. That was really nice.
Oh, it was an honor.
Well, thank you, Elmo.
Thank you, Laurie.
Can you say goodbye?
Bye-bye, everybody.
Alrighty, that was Elmo from the now defunded Public Broadcasting Children's Television Workshop Program, Sesame Street. All righty. Let's do some patron shout-outs. All right, it's time for patron shout-outs. Without patrons, there is no podcast, and I am eternally grateful for the support. And what do patrons get in return? Well, you get a ton. You get a ton. There are patron-only podcasts depending on your levels. There are full moon and new moon walkthroughs. If you're in the magazine tier, you not only get the magazine in written format, you also get me reading your horoscopes and sundry articles. Let's see. There are videos, educational information, ebooks to download, and it's juicy. If you're in the astrology crew, you get access to the Planet of the Month Club library where, oh my gosh, so many hours of information. But I think last I counted, it was like 38 hours of video and audio in there. But I get bored or distracted and I never count the whole thing. So it could be more. You all get the love and sexuality in astrology class. It's not sordid or lewd. It's actually a really beautiful class. And yes, I discuss things like being a sapiosexual or a demisexual or ace and other orientations. So yeah, you get a lot. So let's thank our newest patrons. And here we go. Julaire, Sherry, Samantha, Noreen, Alexandra, Chloe, Lori, Myra, Dragon, Jenna, Starry-Eyed Kitty, Jenna, Wendy, Abby, Carrie, Selena, Joanna, Claire, Ella, Patricia, Cynthia, Kimmy, all Kimmy possible, Van, Bjorn, Zach, Amy, Leah, Ivana, Tina, Kaida. I think it's Kaida. Alicia, and I know Kaida told me, but we're going to go with that. Jen, Rachel, Alexandria, Ashley, Kelly, Woo Woo Mayu, Achia, Renee, Loud Lotus, Catherine, Haya, Patty, Saf, Rachel, JJ, Jake, Sapphire, Michelle, Jeanette, Zaina, Carmen, Psychic Lauren, Annie, Misty, AG, Courtney, Melanie, Cassidy, Emerald, Valerie, Danielle, Winter, Catherine Marie, Elena, Jennifer, Elizabeth, Nicholas, Sarah, Beam, Vanessa, Candace, Ariana, Angel, Dawn, Jenny, Christina, Ashley, Larissa, Mario, Mary, Alyssa, Amanda, Emily, Shannon, Alexia, Emily, Wendy, Hannah, Emily, Lauren, Marta, Joshua, Alicia the Cynic, Megan, Carradine, Echo, Jessica, Maisha, Rebecca, Christina, Emily, Tatiana. Welcome, newest members of the Patreon. Without you, there is no podcast. I appreciate you all. And honestly, you give me the grace to be able to just teach this month. And it's my birthday month. My birthday is next week. It's my birthday. So I'll do something special next week. If you are a patron, keep your eyes out this week for a special discount on readings. Yeah, because even though I'm not reading this month, you know what? There are some very incredible astrologers who are We've got Susie Evolutionary, Shelby Lordy, and Damian Bartlett, all incredibly talented readers. And I'm really hoping you book some readings with them for clarity, for purpose, for planning, for healing. They are all remarkable readers in their own rights. And I should know, I trained 2 of them. So anyway, alrighty, daddy, let's shift gears and have a lovely conversation with Olivia Edward. And if the name sounds familiar, you'll find out why in the interview. All right, guys, I'm super excited. I've got a very special guest with me today. I have Olivia Edward with me. She is an actor. She is involved at Evolve Plus, which is John Edward's platform. And funny enough, they're related. Hi, Olivia. How you doing?
Hi, Laurie. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. So you are into astrology and you run the podcast at Evolve. Is that correct?
Yes, evolveplus.tv. I run the Astrology Plus podcast, and I've been running it for, crazily enough, I think it's going to be 2.5 years, going like close to 3.
Right?
So crazy.
Time has been moving really, really fast. Just wait till Uranus gets into Gemini.
Oh, can't wait. Can't wait. Time already feels like it's flying by, which is crazy because of how many retrogrades we had at the beginning of 2025, but still right. Moving forward. Still moving forward. It keeps slipping into the future. So there's a couple of things I want to ask you. So you, we talked a little bit, and just so everybody knows, I never just jump on with my guests. We warm up a little bit. But we were talking, and you mentioned how you use astrology as a tool just in day-to-day life, which I think is one of the best ways to use astrology. Predictive astrology is its own game. Don't it hurts your brain. So yeah. Sure. But how do you use it? Yeah, I think that astrology is really a really good tool to have just sort of in the day-to-day. I think there are such an insane amount of ways you can use it without having to be like a professional astrologer that's absolutely doing readings and looking at, on a podcast or anything like that. Like, you can use it when you're meeting new people, learning communication styles, just knowing kind of like what the weekly weather is going to be like. So, okay, I have to do this thing. There's an event on this day. So I know what the energy might be like. I know what people might be sort of like, their attitude might be, what behaviors might be. If the energy's on edge, a great thing to know. Or also with your own understanding yourself, looking at your own natal chart and just sort of having an understanding of why I might have a tendency to do this, whether it's for good or for bad. I think that using astrology, especially when you're looking at your natal chart and using it not as an excuse, but as an explanation. Absolutely. Game changer. I feel like, and I've spoken about this with my family, but it's like whenever a child is born, I feel like they should be handed their natal chart, and it's like, here you go. Here's a blueprint to your child. And I do that. I do that for people. In fact, my best friend, the minute her grandson was born, I got a call. And I went through his chart and I was like, this is how you support this child. And he was, he was born during that really crazy Aquarius conga line. It was more than a stellium. It was a conga line of planets back in 2021. And she was like, thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you. Yeah. Letting me know. No. I mean, listen, I'm an Aquarian over here, so I'm not unfamiliar with it. Right. I love Aquarius energy. So speaking of loving, let's get to the top. What's your big 3? And then we're going to talk about something to maybe educate. I am an Aquarius sun. I am a Taurus moon, and I am a Gemini rising. Wow, that's a great combo. Thank you. Yeah, you're not. What about you? What's your big 3? My big 3? Yeah. Scorpio rising, Cancer sun, Libra moon. Very nice. Very nice.
So yeah, see, there's no bad placements. That was something I wanted to move in with you. Okay, pop astrology has always driven me nuts. And even in some more credible sources, like books written in the 60s and 70s, and they were kind of the standard. There's a lot of things that don't necessarily help people feel good about themselves.
No.
How do you fight that in the world? Because I know you do.
Yeah, Laurie, I'm right there with you. I feel like here's my thought process on it. I think it's such a great thing that astrology has become so mainstream. So many more people are talking about it. I think that so many more people are using it as a tool for their day-to-day lives. With that being said, the amount of misinformation and stereotypes that is probably like 65% of what I've seen on social media, on TikTok, on the internet is astounding. Especially because I think that what it's sort of boiled down to at this point is astrology equals zodiac signs, which while zodiac signs are a part of astrology, that's like saying that math equals addition and then not talking about subtraction, division, multiplication, there's algebra, there's all this. So it's sort of, I guess, that part where it's sort of you're boiling it down to what your sun sign is, and then they usually put like a little blurb of what each zodiac sign would be. So it's like, oh, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm just like I'm from a different planet. I'm not from here. I'm just weird. Or it's like,
that is actually honestly one of my biggest pet peeves in astrology, whether it's from, again, more credible sources or pop sources. Aquarius has nothing to do with aliens. It governs humanity.
Thank you so much. Every single time it's like, oh, so you're the Aquarian, you're like the wacky alien from outer space. I'm like, doesn't Aquarius rule over the collective?
Literally. It governs actual humanity. And I'm like, it couldn't get more earthbound than that. But it's like, it drives me nuts. But I love your analogy of using astrology. There's so much depth to it that it can be intimidating.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
I remember my brain breaking more than once.
Yeah, I think it can be really daunting, especially to people who may be interested in learning more, because then they hear a lot of like the terminology or like the degree, or if you're anything like me, you'll look at a natal chart, see all the lines, and go, no, that's not. Is that no? I can't. I don't understand it. So it's a lot. It is like a language. But I think that what doesn't help is trying to boil it down into these what can be very inaccurate sort of like stereotypes, and that sort of gloss over the whole like characteristics and qualities and tendencies of not just the zodiac sign, but also the history of, the planets and like the qualities of and like why they rule over there's just so much more to look at to tell you so many more like interesting things.
Absolutely. And as I always say, consciousness expresses in a spectrum. And the way I teach astrology is we look at, our instinctual consciousness, like how do we react from our animal nature, because human beings are mammals. How do we operate from our social conditioning? And then how do we operate from a transcendent consciousness? And transcendent doesn't mean enlightened. It means you've deconstructed.
Yep.
So you're not on a default setting. It just means you have a choice in how you choose to act. And that there are people who touch on it, but it's not usually on the ticky-tacky.
No.
I still breathe that place, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But so tell me a little bit about how you're approaching astrology on Evolve Plus TV.
So with the Astrology Plus podcast, I really like to focus on what we were just talking about. Astrology, especially for people that are just starting to learn about it, can be so intimidating, so daunting. I was there. It felt like so much. And then learning that there's a different way to look at the natal charts. There's pulse sign and there's placidus. Like there's two, and like there's more than two. I'm like there's more than two. Like there's so it's
my teacher
lot.
had me study there were 27 available at the time. He said, study as many as you can. Choose the one that you feel is most accurate. And I chose Placidus. That's like 30 years ago. But yeah, You said you chose Plastitude. Thank you.
I also chose Plastitude. But that's essentially what I like to always keep in sort of my main goal with the Astrology Plus podcast is that regardless of if you are, if you understand astrology, if you're an astrologer, if you are well versed in all the terminology and understand everything, or if you're just starting to learn about astrology, if you're sort of just starting to dip your toe into this world, or just want to know about what's going on astrologically week by week, that's what I'm trying to make this podcast. I like to have different astrologers on, so for people that learn things in different ways, you have different perspectives on the astrology.
Yeah.
And I try to, as best as I can, break everything down into basic terms so that the astrologer can give you all the degrees, it can give you all the very, very detailed things. And then at the end of the podcast, I like to do a very basic summary based on more feeling of, things you might notice rather than, the terminology of this aspect with this aspect will create this sort of degree, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. That's cool. I love that. It's good to have other good information out there. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
There's, if I hear one more like you'll never find love or the
compatibility.
The
the compatibility is something also that's so tricky because people will just look at the sun sign and they'll be like, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work because it's not conducive and those two things would square, or it's like you have I don't know, they look at like
squares or chemistry. That's one of the things I don't do love readings as a practicing astrologer. I help people build businesses and careers and find fulfilling work in the world or inside of themselves, more importantly. But I bring up the never find love because obviously most people are concerned about their relationships.
Of course.
And that's where a lot of really bad information is.
And
if you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's when we understand and love ourselves that we can attract more than a lesson into life. How do you use astrology as an actor, in your career, or just in life?
It's a really good question. It's definitely specifically career-wise as an actor, I do always, one thing that's very helpful is sort of like the planet returns. So, I mean, of course I can always think about if I don't know my character's birthday, what birthday would my character be? Sort of like looking at the different qualities, because sometimes while looking at a character or reading a script, the qualities will jump out at me. I'll be like, that's a very this planet in this sign thing of them to do, or that's a very this quality or this tendency. But specifically looking at the like the returns of planets and the stage of life that they're in, knowing the things that they would usually be going through around that time, or things where, in my own experience, just sort of being able to take that and use that as a tool and applying it to the character is always really fun.
Oh, that's really fun. So a little deep dive into who they are.
Yeah.
The astrologers at Woke Astrology, because that's my website, we get together on Fridays to play D&D. And we used astrology to build our characters. And the DM is one of my astrology students. He created a whole subclass of mage or bard, actually, that uses astrology, and it has the phases of the moon and the power. We geek out.
So cool. That's so cool.
Right? There's no limit to what you can do with astrology. Yeah. How has it helped you know yourself more? I mean, you grew up as the daughter of someone a bit well known.
Yes.
And if you're anything like mine, my kids would be like, it's not always fun to have you as a mom. They love me and I'm a good mom, but they'd be like, people think you're weird, or people, it's like, I'd be like, well, get used to it, kid.
Yeah.
But how has astrology helped you really kind of carve your own pathway?
That's another really good question. I think that the first part of what you were talking about understanding yourself, I think another great thing about astrology, especially when we're looking at our own natal charts, it can be incredibly validating. especially when you're looking at the relationships between certain planets and where they are and what they're doing. Yes, the qualities as well, like, saying this is your communication style, or this is how you type of energies you gravitate towards. All very validating, but I think there's more to look at when you look at the harsh aspects, the squares, the oppositions. When you see those tendencies, things where it's like they coming up and things that are creating that sort of harsh energy in your life, at least seeing the sort of like characters or players in your own charts that aren't getting along, it can be incredibly validating, sort of like diagnosing the problem and then not having to use it as an excuse, but sort of saying, okay, well, now that I know what it is, I can help to sort of balance it out. I can help to sort of speak for both separate parties and understand that they're both there. They're not going anywhere, but what I do with them is what matters.
Right. And squares are extremely creative aspects. Almost every great artist had a chart full of squares, because nothing gets created without friction.
Right.
And so it's
exactly what you were saying with the compatibility with it's not all trines or it's not all nice aspects, so it's not going to work. It's like, what are you gonna what would you talk about? What is there that's fun in the relationship if there isn't something different? If you guys can't grow together and learn from each other, then what's the point?
Yeah. Trines are way overrated in my humble opinion. And they don't make you lazy either. I don't like that either. It's just unrestricted energy. It's just a free flow. It's just, you're usually just not super conscious of it because it just is. But the spark comes from a square in opposition because it's not about a fight. It's really not. And that's, I think, some of our ideas around that. There's been thought forms created by just so many people talking about it that way. So I met your dad about 3 years ago, maybe it was about 3. Something like that. And we had a very funny interaction. He's actually a regular guy, folks. John Edward. He's a regular guy, and he's a really good dad and husband. And I was very impressed because, you don't know until you meet somebody. Right?
And what's really funny is also I had a friend of mine. He had an event, and so I was running mics, and I was like, "Hey, I need another person to run mics. You wanna come with me?" She's like, "Yeah, sure. I've never seen your dad like do readings. I've never seen the process." So event is over. I'm like, "All right, what did you think?" And she goes, It wasn't what I was expecting. It's like, okay, what were you expecting? She's like, well, I thought it was gonna be more of like I'm sensing male energy around this thing. She's like, instead I got like an auctioneer where it was like, June 23rd, this happened. I'm thinking of this name. It has this and this and this. Hang on, hold on. This. I was like, he started talking so fast. I was like, auctioneer. So that's become like the inside joke.
That is very applicable. That works. I like that. That's funny because it's true. Growing up with it, so it's kind of fun to talk to somebody else's kid because I obviously, again, my kids grew up with me doing astrology. You don't know any different because you were raised with it, but how do you think that's helped you dig into astrology? Because astrology and mediumship are not the same thing at all. They're not. We do not intuit an astrology chart, as my teacher would beat me over the head with as a young student. Be like, "That's great. Now do the astrology." How was that for you?
I think it definitely helped me because I was already I was raised in an energetic household, and so understanding energies and astrology just almost felt second nature. It was more learning about the qualities of each sign and more of like the formal information based stuff of astrology. That's where I was putting most of my focus because understanding the sort of balance of energy and then, for example, how that would apply to polarity signs like Leo and Aquarius, of understanding if you have an excess of one sign, sometimes the answer is helping to balance out and leaning into the qualities of another sign. Understanding concepts like that became very easy because understanding just sort of how energy worked in the world and the universe just, it made sense to me. Which I'm very
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's great. What are you most excited to learn next? And it could be about anything.
I mean, I think one thing that I'm paying much closer attention to is how the current astrology impacts different natal charts, which is something that I've always looked at, but I feel like when there's so much going on in the world and when there's a lot of stuff going on in the stars, I think that I've mainly just been looking at individuals' natal charts and sort of how they've been impacted by sort of like the big transits going on and just seeing what the difference there can be.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I say, the world can be burning and you personally can have the most amazing day, the most amazing month, the most amazing year. And you can't be of service if you don't hold on to that.
Yeah.
You know, because if that's what last week's episode was all about, was narrating your present moment. You know,
absolutely.
Because there is a lot. We are in massive systemic change. This is the biggest change in human history in about 4,500 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. I will also say, and this is something that I do like to talk about whenever I can, but specifically Pluto going into Aquarius. One thing, and this is sort of touches on what we were talking about before with social media and astrology and social media,
where you're gonna
everything. Everyone is scared of Pluto, and Pluto is my favorite. As an Aquarian, I will say this as an Aquarian, Pluto's in Aquarius, and even though I'm gonna look the world, I don't know exactly what's gonna happen. I respect Pluto.
We survive it.
We survive it. Pluto is there to show us what doesn't work and to empower us and transform us into what we need to be. So it's better to not fight it anyways, but I think
just give Pluto your lunch money and it works out.
Just let it go, you know, like it's the
you
know, like I think the transformational part of Pluto is so cool, but I understand the whole life and death part of Pluto can be scary, but it's all just, you know, it's all just cycles.
Well, here's the deal. The big Pluto's the Destroyer came out of the 60s. Okay. With some drama queen astrologers, because the astrologers ahead of me, they were very much drama queens. If you go back to the original crew who were observing it in 1930, they called it forced evolution. And that was Frances Sayokian. If you look up Frances Sayokian's work, I'm sure you've got a book of hers around. But anyway, I've contemplated a lot. I've lived through a lot of Pluto transits, just given my age and my chart. This is my first year that I do not have a major Pluto transit. I mean, there's some nice ones, but, you know, not one of the crunchy ones.
Yeah.
Not a conjunction, not an opposition, not a square. I have a trine. It's been nice. I don't really know what to do with it. I'm 56 years old next month. So I'm like, I don't know why this life is so nice right now. No, but I look at it, and in meditating on it, I realized I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Pluto. And I don't think humanity would be here without Pluto.
Yeah.
And we've misapplied Pluto like to the atomic age. If it was just Mars running the show and nobody saw Pluto and we developed the atom bomb, do you think we'd still be here? I think Pluto's our cushion. I really, really do. So I love that you love Pluto. It's one of my favorites. And because I look back, I'm like, well, I really shouldn't have survived all that.
Yeah, I think Pluto again is also when you can at least recognize that any of the sort of trash that's being, whether it's in the world or whether it's in your own personal life, whatever is being put in front of you is being put in front of you because it's trying to show you we're putting, like, this is what doesn't work. We need to show you before we can throw it away.
Right. And it's power when it does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real power, not dominance and control, but like just really feeling your divinity, you know, your connection to the all that is. It's I love that. So you use I'm going to go all over the place because I have a
let's go.
Venus in Gemini and I've got Mars in Sag. So we wander as we wonder.
I'm good. That's good.
And going back to your acting, because you are your own person in your own right, Olivia. Has it helped you like pick your auditions? Have you looked at things and been like, that sounds like a good project, but I'm not sure. You don't have to give anything that's going to get you into trouble. But do you use it? Because your dad's very proud of you. He occasionally breaks, which is awesome. But I've heard a few things. Yeah, I love that he's proud of you. Have you used it to make decisions around things, or have you just been like, let's see what happens, because that's an okay option?
I mean, I feel like usually when it comes to actual projects, it's usually about knowing who I'm working with. And not even from like a strategic, I know how to talk to you, I know who to talk to. I just want to know. And usually, and it's always been so, at least in my experience, with people on set and sort of knowing who I'm in a scene with and just their personality. It just, again, it makes for a more conducive work environment. Knowing also the transits, because it's less about strategically thinking about how I talk to you, but also knowing the transits of what's going on day to day and knowing how that might impact someone else who, maybe they're majorly impacted by this transit. That's also really helpful. In terms of knowing like projects or if I get a pull towards anything, I feel like I would mainly rely on just a pull or more like in intuition. But usually it would have to be something making me feel like a no to really say like, probably not for me.
Well, that's great, because I get asked a lot, oddly enough, for people to pick dates for people. I'm like, you really don't want to do a lot of electional astrology. I know there are people who really rely on it, but just in my personal experience, and it could just be the way my life's gone, you don't think of everything when you're picking a date. You don't think of you don't always have the range of experience, and you can't know everything to pick the perfect date. So I love hearing that you kind of feel into it and then explore kind of who's there and what are the transits, like, is the lighting going to fall over, that kind of thing.
And a lot of it is like major, if it's ever looking at a specific date for something, it's mainly, okay, is there anything egregiously like maybe don't do this day? Because so long as that's not there, then so far it's probably fine. Especially because with all the different factors, and again, you can't know every single thing. It's more like feeling it out, and then if the astrology supports that, then great.
I love that. That's great. If there was one thing that you've learned that you could pass on to other people, what would that be?
One thing, astrology-wise.
Anything.
I mean, one thing that was I'll say for anyone that, and I feel like this is said all the time, but for anyone that might be learning astrology right now, always learning, because every single time I've said on a podcast, I consider myself very much still a student. The astrologer has always interrupted me and said, same, and I'm still like, there is so much to learn.
It never ends.
It never ends. And also I think the most helpful thing for me was understanding that, just what you mentioned before, there is no good or bad. Like, there's harsh aspects, there's things that, yes, can probably be difficult. And there's zodiac signs that you can get a pass if you have an own bias from your own experience of that energy, like that's fine. But no zodiac sign is good or bad. There is like positive qualities and more darker qualities to everything, because there's balance in everything. And so understanding that was really helpful to just get an objective sort of understanding to all of it.
That's powerful. That's great. So we'll have all of your links in the show notes, and it was really super fun to have you on.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, well, we're the Awake Space. We're fun.
We keep it chill here. So, also, people tune in every single Monday to start their week. And without fail, and sometimes we do laundry with people, and sometimes we're taking hot girl walks, hot guy walks, hot them walks. Sometimes we're sitting in the car banging our head against the steering wheel. But we always get perfect parking.
Nice.
That's a mojo I gift my audience. A word, since you're Gemini rising. Give everybody a word for the week.
A word for the week. This is
word
hilarious.
for the week.
On my podcast, I have a thing where I say words of the week, and it's 3 words, and I always say, I'm not kidding, Laurie. I'm not kidding. And I always say,
I haven't listened yet. That's crazy.
It's insane because there's always so many, and I always watch them try and figure it out. And now that I'm coming up with a word, I understand because there's a lot. A word. You know what? I'm gonna say the word this week is cleanse. I think let yourself do a cleanse. I think whether that's a self-care day or whether it's cleaning out that drawer that has like stuff sticking out of it, or whether it's setting a boundary with someone, just find something to cleanse, even if it's literally just cleaning your house this week. A good cleanse can feel good with a lot going on.
Love that. Cleanse. You stress clean, everybody.
Absolutely.
Get it done.
You might as well have a squeaky clean counter if you're going to be stressed.
Absolutely. Then you can stress bake. All right. Thank you, Olivia.
So much, Laurie. This was so much fun.
You're so welcome. All right, guys, check the show notes.
Oh, she is just lovely. What a fresh face. And I love the confidence in Olivia to be able to stand on her own 2 feet and just be her own person. And I know her dad. He is just as remarkable as he appears on television, and he's a really good dad. They are a really cool family, and I love how supportive they all are of one another. So now, as we round out the podcast, I want to talk to you about resistance and what it is and what we can do about it. Sometimes we just have to write it out, but there are some tips and techniques for working with the energy instead of against it, because much like dealing with a Pluto transit, working against resistance is well, it's futile. So it's going to be a pretty deep conversation. You can always bookmark this spot and come back to it. And I'm going to talk about the different ways we can react to the Schumann Resonance, what it actually means, and why this year is a pivotal year, and what I'm planning on doing to help you get ready for December of 2025. And no, you don't need to be afraid. So let's talk about resistance to the incoming high frequencies and why it's important to understand this stuff. So 2025 is a pivotal year, an absolute pivotal year. All right, let's talk about the incoming high frequencies, why 2025 is an initiatory year, and what it means to be in resistance when these frequencies are happening, and what we can do about it. So first of all, according to Blavatsky, Bailey, and other theosophical writers, 2025 is a year of great initiation. And when we go looking back and back and back through the astrology, we haven't seen any astrology like this in millennia. Combined with my studies of theosophy and other esoteric writings, as well as my energy practices, which includes channeling, this year is a year that humans need to take seriously, but not seriously in a like we're all gonna die kind of way. More in that if we understand how we can come together collectively, even energetically, with the least amount of resistance possible to these energies, the better the outcome on the other side of these incoming energies, which they really start kicking up in December around the solstice. Okay. And humanity is in a crisis point. We can grow or we can stop growing. I think we're growing. I think we may get right through this. I'm seeing really, really good signs. I know things are awful out there. I know what is happening to innocent people is wrong. But the amount of people showing up to counter it is more globally. It does not remove the fact that people are suffering. Okay. It just doesn't. But we're looking at a collective process, and I am heartened by the way people are showing up. And I believe that's going to keep us out of some worst case scenarios. And no, I'm not going to describe them. You don't need that. I've taken some phone notes, so just so I could read them. I don't do good if I put a script up, it doesn't work for me. But so resistance, if you read about it in some of the literature, it'll be really judgy. It'll be like, you're misaligned, you're unprepared. And I disagree. There are ways to be in alignment. I think coming from a place of judgment is a little unnecessary. Misalignment happens for a variety of reasons. That's why I teach about deconstructing from our social cultural norms, because it's like picking out shrapnel out of our energetic systems. Yeah. So I come from a place of like, hey, train your mind, repolarize the heart center, work on energizing your sacral and your root. A lot of times, especially in people socialized as women, our root and our sacral, one or the other, and both sometimes, is those energy centers are blocked. And by the way, there's way more energy centers than just one in the body. And they all blend into a single bit of energy if we practice a lot, and some people think it's over lifetimes. But most of us in the physical vehicle are dealing with these centers that sometimes bridge and fuse and sometimes operate independently. Some of the ways we're not prepared is dietary. Are we getting enough minerals into our system? And in a great many of the alternative healing methods that I've practiced over 25 years now. More like 27. Colloided, chelated minerals are very important. That means they absorb into our systems better. Our soil's been depleted, especially in the United States, but globally. When you look at mass farming techniques, industrialized farming, monocultures, we don't have the rich nutrients that are in our food. So ensuring that we get adequate mineralization. And here's the funny thing. When we're mineralized where we need to be, stuff comes up on deck for review. What kind of stuff? A lot of times the stuff we don't want to look at. Okay, because we somnatize. We make physical, a lot of times, our energetic blocks, our emotional blocks. So we might not want to deal with having resentment. And so it might impact us to where we feel like we've always been carrying a burden. We might have rheumatoid arthritis, or we might have a knee blowout, or we might have a stooped posture. And it's not a blame thing. This is very human. We live in a physical, very dense reality. And so when we are steeped in our culture and our social conditioning, it's really easy to believe that we're wrong for having an adverse reaction to it. And that reaction is resistance. And we may not feel like we can give a voice to things, and we shove it down. And so mineralization will bring stuff up. And so too will things like the Schumann Resonance, if it's spiking high. One of the things that happens when people are not aligned or misaligned, or in glamour, and I'm not talking about glamour magic to make yourself attractive or pretty or to hide. I'm talking about the illusions of this physical world. So it's a very real illusion. We live with it, but a lot of times in that physical illusion, not recognizing we're all vibrating as quarks and neutrinos and small little tiny particles at the quantum level. And that's the illusion I'm talking about. That's the glamour. It's a reaction. When people are saying Gaia is screaming, Mother Earth is having a panic attack, it's not true. The Earth is quite capable of handling a higher frequency. So are we. However, if we haven't had adequate dietary needs met, if we haven't kept ourselves hydrated, which includes electrolytes, not just water, if we haven't been moving our bodies in a way that's appropriate for us individually. And by the way, one kind of exercise does not fit all. Everybody has something that works for them. It could just be walking and moving on your feet. If you can, and if you are not able to be ambulatory, you can use your arms, right? Getting ourselves moving any way we can, depending on our physical condition. So also, if we haven't done our psychological healing, so a lot of times we'll tell ourselves we've healed and we haven't. And I will pretty much guarantee it's a rare event to see somebody who's completely balanced under the age of 43. Okay. I think there's always more work to do. I think by the time you're past 43, if you've done your work, you've got some balance and you understand that it is a constant process because you don't remain balanced. You have to keep achieving balance. And you might be more ready to sit with a counselor or a psychologist, etc. It doesn't make you faulty. It doesn't make you faulty. It's really easy to be in our ego and think, I got it, because the ego is protecting us from feeling vulnerable. If things aren't lining up for you really, really well, if things aren't coming to you relatively easy, I'm not talking about winning the lottery. I mean, just life in general. Like if you go to the store for one item and you keep going to the store and they're out of that item, it could be a clue. Like every single time you'd be like, well, I went for chocolate last time and they were all out of my favorite brand. And then I went to go get the milk I want and they had just sold the last one. I knew somebody like that. Like we went shopping one day and like everything that person wanted was not available. And this is like 22, 23 years ago. And everything I wanted was available. And it was really weird because we hadn't really talked about it. And we went to one last store and I found the thing I was looking for that I had talked about. And it was the last one. And she was like, oh man, you got the last one. I'm like, well, did you want it? She's like, no, I don't want it. I wanted this other thing, but they're out. Why do you always get what you want? And I was like, I don't know. I don't always get what I want, but I did today, because I'd had great disappointments in my life. But I was open and I didn't really care. Some of these were just trivial things. And this person was feeling very deeply attached to their story of nothing going right for them. They were always screwed. They were unlucky. They had a very strong narrative and were creating self-fulfilling prophecies for themselves. We all can do that. By the way, I've done that for myself too. It's just something I really, really remember because like my day was going great. And it was like, I don't know why this is working out, but it was at a time in my life where I wasn't convinced I was ever going to be satisfied or healed, or, I'd been working really hard and wasn't seeing a whole lot of evidence. And this was one of those times where just a little bit of evidence, just a gimme showed up and it felt really good. And yet it was challenged by somebody I called a friend, instead of being happy for me, they were like, well, why don't I get that? Which, by the way, don't do that to your friends. Be happy for them. Your jealousy is a form of resistance, and that is exactly why you're not getting what you want. So there's that. So in Theosophy, we have a personality, and we have a soul. And these are two entities that are meant to be merged, okay? And the personality will resist. It makes it sound like it's a conscious thing. And especially if you read like the older literature, it'll be like the personality resists the soul. And it sounds really judgy, and it is really judgy. My understanding of it is we have our physical vehicle, which is made up of the actual physical body, the mental body, and the emotional body. Okay. And then we have the soul. And it's our job to integrate it all in. So bringing, as above, so below, as within, so without. Integrating in, with your soul into your personality does not mean you will suddenly be, oh, we are all one, beloved. Not at all. You're just not at all. You're not going to be talking about sunshine and rainbows and lollipops, but you will be able to ride through the storms of life with a lot more ease and grace. Be a cosmic surfer, as I talk about. I haven't talked about it a lot, but that's what I mean by cosmic surfer. We're integrating our higher and lower vehicles. So the resistance from the physical to the soul level doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you very human. It's a very natural and normal part of the process. And it can be things like headaches, hyposomnolence, meaning you sleep a lot. So it's the opposite of insomnia. You might have a hard time waking up. It may be really hard. You could have aches and pains. You could be just cranky. Just cranky. That's a form of resistance. You could be a little accident prone. You could be just stubbing your toes on stuff. I once I walked into a cupboard door that had not been closed and readjusted my neck once in resistance. We all do it. It doesn't matter how much you've studied and how much you practice, how much yoga you do, how much meditation you do, how much Pilates you do, no matter how many rituals you run, candles you light, stones you wear, you will face resistance because some of it's at the DNA level. We've got collective healing going on. So how do you deal with this resistance when it's physical, besides making sure you eat relatively nutritiously? It doesn't mean you can't have a treat now and then, but it's making sure you're supplementing with good vitamins and minerals, making sure you have some chelated colloidal minerals to help out. That means they're just easier for the body to absorb. And eating relatively fresh, which at this point is cheaper than eating processed food. Have you looked at the costs in the grocery stores? I told you to grow your own. Let's say you've got headaches, you've got aches and pains. I don't tend to when the Schumann is spiking, but I do right before there's a push. So like we're in a very active period right now. It was lulled a couple weeks ago, and that's when I had my headaches and body aches and all sorts of fun creaks and groans and low energy and almost a depression. Because I've experienced that in my life. And I was like, that's kind of like depression, but it's not. I decided to support my thyroid. Your physical endocrine system plays a major role in the use of your energy. So making sure when you're taking your minerals and your vitamins that you're supporting your hormones in the body. That is part of the role. So often spirituality either focuses on the physical to the detriment of the mind, okay? Especially the mind. It'll touch the heart, but it won't emphasize the mind. Oh, when that is one of your greatest tools for moving energy. But also, we assume a lot of times that you're supposed to be disembodied in the spiritual walk, and that's not it either. Those altered states when people take a lot of plant medicine to reach their guides or all that is, not recognizing we're meant to be bringing it into the physical. We're not supposed to be leaving the body. We're supposed to be spiritualizing the matter. I'm not saying you can't use plant medicine. I just think a lot of people use it unwisely. So if you're meeting a guy in a dark alleyway to get some shrooms, it's probably not the trip you want to take. When we talk about glamour as a form of illusion, not glamour magic, but the glamour we're all fogged in with in this world until we break through it. So those of you who have clear seeing, who've always seen the emperor had no clothes, who've always seen through and got in trouble for it, probably growing up, it distorts things. So all those people who were claiming that Mama Gaia is screaming, she's having a panic attack, they are being stimulated by the higher frequencies, but they haven't cleared the vision yet. Will they clear the vision? Maybe, maybe not. It's not our place to judge people. Identifying something is not the same as condemning someone for it. Some people don't clear the vision in this lifetime. It's not about being better or worse. It's not even about dedication. Okay. It's process. Initiations are layered, kind of like in Shrek with the onion. Okay. Or cakes, because cakes taste better than onions. But the layers pull back and we go deeper and deeper. And it might take a couple lifetimes, especially when we didn't live very long. If you think somebody reached enlightenment in 25 years, no, but they probably thought they did. Okay. So I know I did, when I'm making fun of young people, I'm remembering my own foolishness. Okay. And I was a very serious person. I was not an unserious person. That ego is a real thing because we don't want to feel vulnerable. We're afraid to get in trouble or we're afraid to look foolish and we don't want to feel exposed and we haven't gathered enough experience points yet. And it doesn't mean old people know everything. We don't. We just have more time on the planet. That's it. It's like, we've probably seen a bit. It's perspective. So spiritual pride, victimhood, and false humility are big. Remember when I talk about shadow work and that virtue is one of our greatest shadows that need to be seen as virtuous, that need to be seen as perfect, that need, when people need to, do their poses for the Instagram or on the TikTok, they have to have a certain aesthetic, it's like, it's not necessarily it. Victimhood, being really, really attached. Like, I'm going to hold resistance because, I was beaten or I was in an accident and it's not fair. Or I'm always helping people and nobody helps me back. Or everything I love is always taken away. Those can all be stories we tell, Every time I get a little bit ahead, poof, something happens. Those are stories we can tell, right? I've told almost all of those stories in my life. And then you can move through them. In fact, letting go of the need to tell the story is a really big thing. If you can't learn to listen and you always have to be self-defensive, there's a problem. If you're always saying, I know, instead of listening to what somebody has to say, then there's a problem. We have a lot of discomfort for a lot of people up on deck in 2025 as these frequencies from both the cosmic rays as well as Gaia herself are shaking us up. We are in an initiation, and an initiation is not a pass or fail exam. However, they're usually not comfortable. Initiation is evolution. We are taking the next step, both collectively and individually. Okay. And we might be ready for part of it in one layer and maybe another part of it in another. And these physical experiences, like let's say it's a headache, and you're drinking water. You'll be like, but Laurie, I'm drinking water. You got electrolytes in it. You probably need, if we're running a lot of energy and the frequency has changed. And what do I mean by that? Think of sound. Okay. So if you tap a crystal glass, if the sound is pure, all right, it's going to vibrate at a very high rate, right? Because a high rate is a faster energy. If you want that sound to conduct itself over time and space, it needs to have the ability to do so. So if you have it in a lead box with one opening, hitting it is going to sound dulled versus having a smooth pathway for that sound to be conducted further, right? Our bodies require minerals and vitamins and nutrients and things like electrolytes, salts, etc., in order to conduct, allowing that energy to flow through us, because otherwise it's going to hit a block, right? And that's what's going to cause some pain. If we refuse to look at our issues, if we refuse to look at our stories, if we refuse to look at them, and I don't mean dive into the pain, but just accept what is, stop fighting that it happened. And I know that's hard. I had a very long healing process. I understand. I'm not telling you to ever forgive. You don't have to forgive anything. But when we can allow the energy to move through, because the belief that this bad thing happened to me, so I'm forever damaged, that's the block we want to clear. Well, I'm not forever damaged. I skinned my knee once really bad. I felt, actually, a better analogy, not a skinned knee, but I had a bike accident once and it skinned my entire face. If you've ever wondered why I have a little scar on my lip, it's amazing that's the only scar I really have, because I looked like hamburger. The road rash was huge. And healing from that was pretty rough. Okay. If we hold on to the story of that, okay, had I had more resistance to the healing process, or I sat in more judgment of myself, I might have more than one scar from it. It can be a painful thing to sit and look at our contribution, right? I was mad at the bike. I was 9 when it happened. I was mad at the bike. My bike failed me. But in actual fact, I was in such a hurry, I didn't put the rubber band around my bell-bottom jeans, and my jeans got caught in the chain. Learning to take accountability for that after the accident is probably a good part of why I healed fairly rapidly, besides being young. Okay. When we tell a story of our victimhood, when we tell a story of misalignment, when we can't take accountability for our own role in something, and I'm not talking about being physically abused, but like if you lose your job and it was those damn dirty, bad bosses. Now, let's say we can put it in a container. Let's say you've been late every day for a month. You haven't really explained why to your boss. You've missed 3 deadlines. You've had corrective action. Is it really that mean old boss? Remember, you haven't had a conversation. You didn't bring up what grace you might need. You haven't asked for accommodation. Right? And when your friend says, really need, I know, and you push it off, that's resistance. Instead of saying, well, I feel embarrassed and I don't really want to talk about why with them. And they're like, well, you probably want to let them know you've got some stuff going on. You don't have to give them all the details. Like, we don't have to give a full confessional, right? But we need to take accountability for our action. Now, let's say you have resentment because you did do all that and your boss fired you anyway. Now, that would be a pisser. And it's okay. But the trying to be a good person, or just telling the story because you're getting clout out of it, right? People might buy a drink at the bar. People might send you some gifts, or somebody might lend you some money. And people do this, okay? I'm not saying you're a bad person. If this has been you, if it's not you, great. But that story of that downright dirty so-and-so, rotten, yellow-bellied, sapsucker, dog catcher, nasty human, Voldemort, did these horrible things to me. The more you tell that story over and over, the more power you're giving that low down, no good son of a you-know-what Voldemort all the power. Instead of saying, I've been released to go do things that are more fulfilling, and leave it there. That is much less resistance. You can still say, I'm still worried about how I'm going to pay my bills, and they fired me, so I'm going to go collect unemployment. And yeah, they're going to fight it, but I can fight it and win. We all want this easy road. This, the minute some people hit an obstacle, they're like, oh my God, the world's falling apart. It's like, have you not noticed life is not simple or easy? No one promised that. Not one God, not one goddess, not one philosophical tradition promised an easy ride. They promised you easy afterlives. And to me, that is a shill game. So the more you grow, the more intense it can get, because you can handle more. And it doesn't mean more bad things are going to happen, but think about all of the great spiritual teachers, including ones living today, because all the dead ones people worship, yeah, they're not the only teachers out there. Okay? There's living ones. They almost always have had difficulty in life. They may have physical difficulties. They may have had immense trauma throughout childhood into adulthood. They may have been forced into being refugees. They may have been forced to separate from the people they love. They may have been forced. You'll feel a lot like they'll often have stories that life stories that are filled with miraculous events because it looked like they weren't going to make it or they weren't going to survive. Those are all things that go along with it. There's a lot more living today than at any other time in human history. And the real ones you'll know. There's a lot of people who think they're, and they'll be like, I channel, beloved. There's a lot of channelers out there who keep it quiet. I mentioned that I channel, but I don't put it out there. I'm not going to sit in front of an audience without, no, I'm going to say never. Every time I say never, my guidance is like, bet. So I'm not going to finish that sentence. I'm like, whoa, you're falling into the trap. You're saying never. Every time you say never, it happens. So we're going to walk back from that. And notice I'm using a sense of humor with this because it's not meant to be so serious. It is serious, but this whole thing where people are false humility. Oh, it's just this walk, beloved. But when we surrender, we're not surrendering in a giving up kind of way. We surrender to our intuition. We surrender to working with our guidance, not having to use our willpower to make things happen, not having to push it or push away, but we'd be like, okay, I'm connected to the universe. I am my soul. My soul is not separate from me. That's a big knowing. You've moved through to something when you get that knowing, like I am my soul. I'm not separate from that. When you get to that stage, you still are going to have headaches. You're still going to have physical complaints. It's moving through it. So you can be like, okay, I can feel this as energy. You can even go to the doctor. There's nothing wrong with going to the doctor. And the doctor might say, well, we don't know why. Maybe your blood pressure is a little high, and they'll check you out. But maybe there's nothing physically wrong, but you're still having these things. And it's a good idea. And a couple of ways you can take care of these things is you can lay down on the floor or on the bed. It's okay if you end up going to sleep. Sleep helps you release energy and release resistance. It stops momentum of the energy. And If you can, sometimes if you have a migraine, it can be very hard. So you want to be as kind to your physical body as possible and not curse it. You could take an Epsom salts bath. You could use eye masks. If you don't have an eye mask, or one of those, the herbal eye masks that heat up, those are really nice. If you don't have those, that's okay. You can use you can warm a washcloth and put it over your eyes, or if cold works better for you, you want to treat your vessel kindly. Okay. If the Schumann resonance is spiking and you're feeling really out of it, you want to make sure you're watching your diet. You want to make sure you're eating good for you, not just grabbing a quick snack or not going without food, and check how much protein you are eating. You may need more protein to help balance and ground. Okay. Other people don't need as much. So every body type is different. Initiations aren't like an achievement badge. Okay. It's just a natural phenomenon of growth. We always think of these individuals that gained fame as world teachers and have books, right? But each one of us is on that same path. None of them had the corner on the market. None of us, it's not about being special or anointed. We are all anointed. Every single human being, including the ones we don't like, are anointed. We can move through multiple initiations, one from a soul level, one from a physical level. It doesn't mean you're wrong or you're being punished. That's why you want to really work on the physicality. And I don't just mean like working out and things like that. It's really looking at how you think about your body, how you feel about your body. Are you resenting your body? Are you holding resentment in the body? We can wear the body out by not processing our feelings, experiences, and the big energies that we deal with in life. So if you're going, there's 7 initiations. In the physical, we do up to 5. In the first initiation, it's really resistance to renouncing material attachment. And that's a very common one, like having to let go of physical things. You could have a house burned down. You could have to flee a country and leave all your belongings behind. You might have lost a job and lost everything. The loss of things is actually the opportunity to release the emphasis of attachment to things making us who we are, or identifying with materialism. It doesn't all have to go away, and it can all be restored once we understand how to work with that energy. The second initiation is overdeveloped solar plexus, and I think this is probably the most common that I see in the spaces I travel in. It is emotional drama. The drama. Okay. It is all about the fear and the sensationalism. When people were demanding I give them hope, and they were disappointed when what I said didn't happen in the way we all thought it would happen, right? And they'd be like, but I had my hope in you. And I'm like, I always said, don't put your hope in me. On a live stream, I famously said, I'm not God. I can't give you hope. That's something you got to do for you. You and your relationship with your deity, okay? Or your universe, or your connection with your quirks. That is not something I cannot be your source. That is not who I am. I am not a god. I'm not a goddess. I am a physical being. Okay. And so the drama, the emotionality, the people who are self-absorbed. I finally got an amazing, and I'm not dissing any of you, but I finally got an amazing question from someone watching my TikToks, and it was a teenager. And they asked me one of the least selfish, most interesting questions. It wasn't about their experience. They're like, they summed it up basically by saying, well, can't it end up better? Can it turn out okay? Instead of, when is this going to end? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I can't take any more. Can you look at the dates for my vacation without ever booking a reading, by the way, just wanting free labor. But they want to get paid scale. Just saying. Just saying. Right? And this young person, and I did a 3-part video answer because it was such a good question. Obviously, that person has a little more tamed solar plexus and a little more developed mind. Okay. So the third initiation is not letting the mental body be governed by the soul. Okay. This is why we cultivate our intuition, is for our mind and our soul to connect. And when you do, so like when I talk about a thought popped into my head, I followed my guidance. I live that way. I live that way every single day. It's not an exception to the rule. Doesn't mean I don't have shitty days, and it doesn't mean I don't not listen. I do. There's many times I don't. But in general, I've learned not to fight it. In general, I've learned not to argue with it, fight it. I will say the weak moments are when it's involving my children, right? My children, my pupper, but even then I can still myself and my mind and allow that soul connection, that deep soul connection, and allow the intuition to guide me. And there's no begging involved. There's no asking involved. There's just knowing there's a connection and the information comes. You may have glimpses of that. You may have that if you've done the work to get there. But if you think you're going to get there in a week or 2 weeks or between full moons because you did some rituals, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not probable. Okay. It takes time and energy and practice to give up control while still maintaining your mental sharpness. Okay. It's practice. A lot of the work I teach, whether it's healing the money wound or finding your side gig using astrology, these classes are actually designed to reorient our thinking to ameliorate connection with your guidance. It's not about me telling you how to live, but there's a process that helps just kind of melt away a little bit of social and cultural conditioning so you can have a little bit more contact with that which is most authentic to you, which is that soul, body, personality connection. So this is from Alice Bailey's Initiation, Human and Solar. Initiation is a process of conscious absorption of light, and the refusal of the personality to accept this leads to pain and disruption. Sometimes it's not a refusal. We may not have our channels opened wide enough. And that's one of the reasons I suggest people do either Ayurvedic medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, where you're working on widening receptivity, widening channels. For me, TCM worked the best, and I worked with an amazing practitioner and 3rd-generation Taiwanese herbalist. She was absolutely phenomenal. She made a massive difference in my life and helped me open up my meridians so I could receive more, because sometimes through our DNA, family history, family trauma, generational trauma, from our own diet, from our own traumas, our personal traumas, our personal experiences, we can have some of those energetic blocks. And what I found, therapy wasn't enough. Working on being highly conscious wasn't enough. I had to eventually work on the physical level, and I found acupuncture worked very well, and supporting my endocrine system with the herbal remedies. That worked for me. It's not going to work for everybody in the same way. Everybody has their own pathway. So for me, it's understanding that this year we need to open our channels. And I remember I told her once when I was trying to explain my pathway, and she could really see I was on a path, there was agreement there. But I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm going to combust because I don't feel like I can contain all of that light. And this was many years ago. This is well over a decade ago, like more like 15 years ago, 18 years ago. Anyway, I felt like I would utterly combust. And we have to allow the physical container to be more able to absorb that light and to be a reflection of it. So if you want to work on those headaches, don't just drink water. Make sure you got some electrolytes. Do take a bath or a shower, put some Epsom salts in it, let your body soak. You want to bring yourself into the greatest state of relaxation you can without imbibing in substances. Okay. If you want to make it through some of these energetical shifts, you really want to make sure your system can handle it. You don't want to overload your liver or your kidneys. All righty. Well, now that I've weirded you all out, if you want to know more, I'll be talking about it in the Patreon. If you are curious about anything and you're a patron, make sure you ask me in our chats, in our community chats. I hope you enjoyed having Elmo on the show. It was a lot of fun. Sometimes I sound more like Elmo than others, but it was a way of entertaining my eldest child when she was a toddler and a way of torturing her well into adulthood. I enjoy you very much. I look forward to hearing what you think in the comments on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and may you have a beautiful week.